The train stopped in the middle of nowhere. No station. No lights. Just fog pressing against the windows like breath on glass. Mara Ellings stepped out with her suitcase, blinking through the haze, expecting someone, anyone, to greet her. No one came. Only the toll of a distant bell, muffled but distinct. 3 slow strikes. It echoed like it came from underwater, and yet it vibrated in her chest like it was right beside her. She checked the letter again, folded so many times the ink had faded. You are expected at Blackbone Abbey. Arrive on the 13th hour. Do not enter before the bell ceases. Do not look back until you see the tower. He swallowed. The bell continued. A narrow path led away from the tracks into a twisted forest. Dead leaves. Bare trees like black veins against the sky. And far ahead through the fog, a silhouette of a tall, narrow tower. The Abbey. She walked quickly. With each step the trees whispered in Latin just at the edge of hearing. Not words she understood, but words she recognized as if from a childhood prayer she never learned but once knew. By the time she reached the Abbey gate, the bell tolled its 12th and final strike. She didn't look back. Not even when she heard soft footsteps behind her. The Abbey was older than it had any right to be. Stone blackened by weather, its walls laced with crawling ivy and symbols carved so deeply they bled shadow. No lights in the windows. No movement. The iron gate creaked open before she touched it. Inside, the courtyard was overgrown and silent, save for the windless chimes that hung from the arched windows above. Dozens of them. None of them moving, but somehow they all gave off a soft metallic hum like waiting. A woman stood in the doorway, clad in deep violet robes, her face almost too smooth. You are Mara Ellings? She asked without tone. Mara nodded. I was told I'd be expected. You were. Follow me. The halls were vast and cold, smelling of oil and dust. Ancient tapestries lined the stone walls, most depicting twisted trees, hands reaching through fog and monks with mouths sewn shut. The deeper they walked, the more Mara felt like the Abbey was descending into the earth, though they never stepped down. This place wasn't on the map, Mara said. It's not even in public records. Are you sure it's? It remembers who it needs to, the woman interrupted. And it forgets those who disobey. They stopped at a small wooden door, worn smooth from centuries of touch. Your quarters, the woman said. You must never leave them while the bell tolls. Mara frowned. And when does that happen? The woman looked at her strangely. It hasn't tolled in 121 years. Until today. The room was simple. A narrow bed. A mirror nailed to the wall. A single candle already lit. No clock. No books. No window. She unpacked, unsure what she was meant to do. The letter had said nothing of her purpose, only that she'd been chosen as the Abbey's new archivist. And yet, there were no books here. Just long halls of whispering shadows, and the weight of that bell still in her ribs. She fell asleep fully dressed, unsure if she was being watched. He dreamed of the tower. From within, dark stone steps spiraling around a massive bell, its mouth yawning open like a wound in the ceiling. And hanging upside down beneath it, a man, mouth sewn shut, face hidden by a wax mask, his body still twitching like something had been half-wrung inside him. He screamed. The bell rang once. And she woke. The candle was gone. So was the mirror. In its place, a small scrap of parchment pinned to the wall where her reflection had once been. Read. You have heard it now. You must not remember. But you will. Blackbone awakens. Mara dressed quickly. The halls outside were darker than before and longer, as though the building had shifted during the night. She wandered until she reached a staircase she hadn't seen before, narrower, colder. She descended. And the deeper she went, the more she remembered places she had never been. A cloister flooded in moonlight. A chapel beneath the earth. A corridor lined with bells of bone, each etched with a name. One of them. Mara Ellings. Her hand froze. She didn't remember writing it. But her name was fresh. The dust hadn't yet settled. Then she heard it again. The bell. Not 12 tolls this time. Only one. Low and echoing. And this time the sound didn't travel through air. It moved through her bones. She turned. Behind her, a monk, faceless, mouth sewn shut, robes soaked with brine. He held out a book. It was bound in violet leather. The title burned into it. The Archivum of the Lost. The monk pointed to it, then pointed to her mouth, and the candlelight behind him extinguished itself. Mara didn't remember taking the book, but now it lay open in her hands, even though she didn't recall sitting or even blinking. Dust clouded the air like incense. Candles burned without flame, and she was alone in a vast round chamber somewhere deep within the earth. The walls were made entirely of bells, some large as carriages, some no larger than thimbles. Each bore a name etched in a language she almost knew. Her eyes dropped to the open page. The book pulsed beneath her fingers, not like a heart, but like a throat preparing to speak. The first bell rings to bind the flesh. The second to sever memory. The third to open the archivum. A fresh line wrote itself beneath. The fourth bell is inside you. She closed the book. Too hard. A small bell on the wall behind her let out a dry metallic chime, like it had been bruised. She stumbled through the chamber until she found stairs. Spiraling upward, then sideways, then down again, as though space had turned inside out. And always, the bells followed. Not ringing, not echoing, just humming. A frequency beneath hearing. A pressure in the teeth. She passed a hallway lined with portraits. Each had a woman's face. But no name. No frame. Only brass bells nailed into the canvas where the mouths should have been. Her own face stared back from one. In the refectory she found the violet-robed woman waiting. Mara slammed the archivum on the table. What is this place? The woman tilted her head. You're the archivist. You tell us. I didn't ask to be this. Mara's voice broke. I was summoned. I got a letter. I don't even know why. You do, the woman said quietly. You always have. I've never been here before. You've never left. Mara stepped back. What are you saying? The woman smiled, and for the first time her expression broke. Something else looked through her face. Your bell rang long ago. The next day Mara tried to leave. She returned to the courtyard, suitcase in hand. But the gate was gone. Not closed. Not locked. Gone, the ivy-covered wall now unbroken stone. Behind her, the bells in the upper windows began to chime. One by one. Foley. She screamed. No echo. Then came a voice from above. Not spoken. Struck. The archivist may not leave the archive. She dropped her case and ran. The Abbey shifted. Rooms changed places. Corridors looped. She found herself at the tower's base again. But now it looked different. Taller and incomplete, as if waiting to be finished. A spiraling mass of scaffolding and bonework, forming the spine of a bell that hadn't yet tolled. The archivum lay open at the foot of the stairs. This time it displayed a list. Her name was first. Then, Alving, Trosneth, Elise Byrne, Balvachel. Each name struck out, some with red ink, others with what looked like dried blood. Only hers remained intact. That night the dreams came faster. Not dreams. Bouquets. She stood over bodies. Countless. All women. Each sewn into their own bell. Their skin stretched into metal, their eyes forged into clappers. Each whispered her name. Some said it in pleading. Others in rage. One, a woman with ash-blonde hair and eyes identical to her own, whispered, "You're the last one. Finish the ringing. Free us." She awoke in a bell chamber. This one different. No stairs. No exit. Only bells suspended in mid-air, orbiting slowly in a weightless void. And at the center, the monk with the wax face. But this time he spoke, though his mouth remained sewn. The sound came from inside Mara's own ears. The Abbey never forgets its instruments. You are not summoned to observe. You are summoned to resonate. The archivum only opens to its author. Mara tried to shout, but her voice came out in bell tone, a dry, sonorous clang that echoed in the air like iron striking nerve. The monk held out a hand. In it, a quill. Made of bone. Dipped in rust. One name remains. Ring it. She refused. Ran again. This time to the chapel. It was empty, save for the great silencing bell in the center, covered in vines and cloth as if to restrain it. On the wall behind it, words carved deep. If this bell rings, the archive ends. He touched it. And suddenly she remembered. The letter hadn't summoned her. She wrote it. She was the archivist before. And the one before that. Each time she completed the ringing, the Abbey erased her, reshaped her, and began again, bound to remember just enough to fulfill the ritual. Her bell had tolled. Long ago. And the archivum was not a book. It was a soul. The bell behind her shivered. Dust fell from its rim. Ropes pulled tight. And for the first time in over a century it moved. The bell rang. Not out loud but in the marrow of the Abbey. Mara dropped to her knees as the air turned solid, thick as oil. Her bones hummed. Her tongue stuck to the roof of her mouth. He felt the tone instead of hearing it, long, low and alive. Above her, the great bell in the chapel gave off no visible motion. But the cloth had burned away. Not torn. Not fallen. Burned like it had never belonged there. And beneath it, inscribed into the floor, now visible in full. The archivist must toll the forgotten, lest the forgotten toll her. She fled again, but not out of fear. Out of remembrance. Because now, each step called forth another memory not entirely hers. She saw the Abbey as it had once been, full. Monks walked these halls in silence, faces hidden, ringing no bells. That was her job back then. Her name hadn't been Mara. It had been Ellen. Or Eloise. Or Merwin. She had been many things, but always the same role. Always the archivist. The one who kept the bells silent by remembering who they once rang for. In the gallery of mouths she found her reflection again. The portrait of herself. Updated. Her mouth had been painted over, sealed in gold. And someone had written in blood above her brow. The last bell is breath. Then she turned and saw the monk again. Not the wax-masked one, but a different figure. This one shorter, draped in robes of pure white, the face hidden behind a mirrored mask. It held something in both hands, 2 bells, each small, dull and cracked. One bore her name, the other bore no name at all. The figure pointed to the second. And then it breathed in. She collapsed. Sprawled across the stone floor, body trembling. Memories poured into her skull like molten iron. Not visions. Not dreams. Lives. She remembered being Elise Byrne, staked in salt water below the Abbey, drowned in a bell ritual to purge the unrecorded. She remembered being Noel Vatchel, a child monk who rang the forbidden tone and vanished into the bell tower, never aging. She remembered the first bell, the one they called the heart ring. It was not made of metal but of resonant bone, carved from the skeleton of the founder himself, whose scream had rung the Abbey into being. And she remembered what she had done to forget. Mara's hands were not her own. They held the archivum open again. The page showed the same names, but now only one remained. Mara Ellings. Underneath, a blinking line like a cursor. Waiting. And then, you must write the name of the bell. Or be written. She refused. But the Abbey does not take refusal lightly. The walls shook. Bells across the tower rang. Not in harmony but in protest, as though the building itself rejected her indecision. The robed figures returned. A dozen of them. Mirror-faced. Mouths sewn. Each carrying a bell with a name, hers over and over again. They surrounded her. And they began to ring. It wasn't sound, it was memory made audible. Each tone struck against her ribcage. She saw her mother's face and then it vanished. She saw herself as a child, and then that image shattered. Even her name felt foreign, like a costume sewn too tight. The archivum fell shut. And when she looked down, she no longer cast a shadow. Then a voice. Faint like a whisper through old paper. Mara, let me speak. You locked me away. Let me remember. She turned. It was the woman from her dreams. The one with ash blonde hair. The one who had whispered, "Free us." Only now the woman was half-wrung, her limbs bent unnaturally, her skin cracked with sound lines, her lips fused together like wax. But her eyes begged. I was you. You were me. We are the archivist. But we were also the first. Remember who we really were. Mara reached out. And when her hand touched the woman's face, a flood. Not of visions. Of truth. Before the Abbey. Before the books. Before the bells. There was a sisterhood. A convent of bellbinders. Women who used tones to keep death from crossing over. Each had a bell bound to their name. When they died, the bell would ring to pass their soul forward. But Mara, once named Ariel, refused her toll. She feared oblivion. So she hid her bell and turned the ritual into record-keeping. She built the Abbey. He erased the others. One by one as they died, she locked their tones into pages instead of air. The archivum was their prison. And her curse. Now she stood at the center of it. The book. The bells. The Abbey. Her own bell still unrung. The mirror-faced monks held it out to her. Small. Cracked. It bore her true name. Ariel the Unrung. And beneath it, etched in blood, the final bell must be chosen. The bell in her hands was warm. Not metal, but skin stretched thin, shaped into a perfect curve, vibrating faintly with the echoes of unrung centuries. Her name, Ariel the Unrung, pulsed like a wound beneath her thumb. The monks circled closer. Their mirrors showed her face, but aged, shattered, burning. Each of them had once been her. Each aversion who refused, rewrote, ran. Each had become nothing but a tone caught in amber. Now they waited for her to choose. She turned toward the tower's spiral, and it unfurled before her like a throat. Each step up creaked with centuries of pressure. The walls were made of compressed pages, her own writings stacked and hardened into marrow. The archivum was no longer a book. It was a bell tower made of memory. At its center, the heart ring, the first bell. The founder's scream still carved along its rim. It did not chime. It breathed. And waited. The woman with ash-blonde hair stood at its base. Elise. Or perhaps Merwin. For all of them. Her voice came as a chime inside Mara's lungs. We were meant to be keepers, not jailers. Every bell you bound should have rung. Every soul you archived should have crossed. Only your bell remains. If you toll it, the archivum collapses. We move on. Mara's hands trembled. If I toll it, she whispered. What happens to me? The woman stepped closer. You cease being all you've ever been. No more names. No more remembering. No more Abbey. She looked at the bell. Small. Imperfect. A breath away from breaking. She had loved her memory. She had made memory her kingdom. Built cathedrals of silence, charted lives like scriptures. But in doing so she had denied the one thing every bell deserved. Its voice. And now she was the last tone left unsound. She stepped to the center. The heart ring groaned as it sensed her. Monks lined the spiral above, watching. Waiting. One by one the bells on the tower walls began to crack. Then split. Then sing. Not in chaos but in harmony, names returning to air. Elise. Roseneth. Elving. Each tone became a wind. Each wind a voice. Each voice a farewell. Mara, Ariel raised her bell. And whispered, let me forget. He rang it once. The sound was not loud. It was inward. A single pure note that unraveled the walls of the Abbey like parchment curling in fire. The spiral collapsed. The bells turned to ash. The archivum bled names into the wind, not stored, not remembered. Released. She fell to her knees as the air grew lighter. Brighter. And then, herself peeling away like pages in a book. She saw every face she had worn. Every silence she had sworn. And at the very last, a girl named Mara stepping off a train into fog. Then, silence. Not absence. Peace. Somewhere far from time a candle relit. And on a forgotten hill, the ruins of Blackbone Abbey finally crumbled into dust. No bells rang. Because there were none left to ring.